Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Isabella's Mind and Money. Smart thinking, smart earning. Today, we're diving into a hot topic that so many people are buzzing about: AI-based cryptocurrencies. We'll talk about which projects are worth watching, what risks you should keep in mind, and how this trend could reshape finance in the next few years. And joining me once again is Adrian Cross, a crypto and AI enthusiast and independent researcher who's been deep into this intersection. Adrian, welcome back. Ready for round two?
Absolutely, Isabella. Last time we talked about how AI and blockchain work together. Today we're going one step further and looking at the actual coins and projects behind the buzz. People want to know which AI coins really matter, which ones are just hype, and where the smart opportunities might be.
Yes, sure. And here's a little teaser for our listeners. By the end of today's conversation, Adrian and I are going to sketch out what a $10,000 AI crypto portfolio might look like. So if you've been curious about where even to start, stay tuned. This is going to be fun.
I like that idea, Isabella. Before we even get to numbers, people really need to understand why AI crypto is such a hot topic right now. The hype isn't random. It's connected to what's happening in tech and finance globally.
Exactly. And that's a great place to begin. Adrian, let's zoom out for a second. Everywhere I go, I see people talking about AI coins. Twitter, Discord, Reddit, YouTube, it's almost like they've taken over the conversation. Why do you think there's suddenly so much noise around AI-powered cryptocurrencies?
You're right, Isabella. The buzz is everywhere. And it's not just noise. It's directly tied to what's happening outside of crypto. Think about the last 2 years. ChatGPT went mainstream. Image generators like Midjourney exploded, and suddenly people realized AI isn't science fiction anymore. It's here, it's usable, and it's getting better every week. That excitement naturally spilled into the crypto world.
So the hype around AI in general is lifting AI-related crypto projects too.
Exactly. But there's more to it than hype. Investors see blockchain as the perfect meeting point for AI because it solves some of AI's biggest challenges. For example, how do you get access to massive amounts of computing power without relying on Google or Amazon? How do you share AI models securely and make sure they're not manipulated? That's where decentralized networks, powered by tokens, come in.
That makes sense. So it's not just another shiny object in crypto, it's filling a real gap.
Yes, and the market is already showing it, but with a twist. Just to give some context, by mid-2024, the market cap of AI tokens had climbed to around $25 billion, which was huge. However, in early 2025, Trump's inauguration and the launch of China's DeepSeek model triggered a brutal correction. By February, the entire sector had declined to roughly $5 billion. Fast forward to now, September 2025, the sector hasn't fully recovered. The hype has cooled, trading volumes are lower, and investors are way more cautious. But here's the interesting part. Instead of chasing flashy AI meme coins, attention is shifting to projects that actually do something useful, like AI agents that can manage crypto wallets or work inside decentralized networks. And big players like Franklin Templeton, A16Z, VanEck, they're still bullish. They believe this is just the pause before the next wave. By the end of this year, we might see 1 million AI agents running on-chain doing real jobs. So it's less about hype now and more about building the foundation for the next growth phase.
That's such a vivid picture, Adrian, from hype and billions pouring in to a sudden crash, and now this shift towards something more grounded. I like how you framed it as a roller coaster because that's exactly what it feels like watching the charts. But let me ask you this. What really sets AI coins apart from all the other tokens out there? We've had DeFi, we've had layer 1 chains, we've had meme coins. So what makes AI-based cryptocurrencies a category of their own?
Great question. The key difference is in the purpose. Traditional layer 1 blockchains like Ethereum or Solana are about building infrastructure. DeFi tokens are usually about financial services, lending, borrowing, staking, and yield. But AI coins are trying to embed intelligence into the system itself. Think of it like this. Instead of just storing data or moving value, AI tokens often represent networks where machine learning models can be trained, rented, or even executed in a decentralized way. For example, Render lets people share GPU power for AI rendering jobs, while BitTensor rewards contributors for training AI models collaboratively. So, while DeFi is like a decentralized bank and Layer 1 is like the operating system, AI crypto is more like a decentralized brain. It's not just infrastructure for finance, it's infrastructure for intelligence. And that's why it has a different risk-reward profile than other categories.
I like how you put it, Adrian. DeFi is the bank, Layer 1 is the operating system, and AI crypto as the brain. That makes it really clear. But let's go a bit deeper. When people talk about AI and crypto, it still sounds abstract to many listeners. In practice, which areas are actually benefiting from this combination right now? Where do you see the most promising sectors emerging?
Three main ones stand out. First, data processing and marketplaces. AI models need massive amounts of data, and blockchains can help organize, verify, and even tokenize that data. Projects like Ocean Protocol are good examples where data providers can share data sets in a secure and monetizable way. Second, decentralized computing power. Training AI models is expensive and GPU hungry. Networks like Render and Akash create marketplaces where people can rent out unused GPU or server capacity. That's a direct win for both AI and blockchain users. And third, specialized AI services on-chain, like automated agents for DeFi trading, risk management, or even wallet assistance. Here, you're starting to see experiments with AI-powered bots that can negotiate trades, set strategies, or monitor smart contracts for vulnerabilities. So in short, data, compute, and services. These three sectors are where AI and crypto are really starting to click.
That's fascinating. And honestly, I can see why people get excited. But let me ask you this, Adrian. Is this something that only big companies with resources can really tap into? Or can everyday investors and developers already start using these AI plus crypto services in a meaningful way?
Good question. And I think this is where a lot of people are surprised. You don't actually need to be a big tech company to use these tools anymore. For example, with Render, anyone with a mid-range graphics card can rent out their GPU power and get paid in Render tokens. That means a college student with a gaming PC can already participate in the AI economy. Or take BitTensor. It's basically an open network where anyone can contribute machine learning models and get rewarded based on how useful their model is to the network. You don't need a billion-dollar data center, you just need a decent setup and some coding knowledge. For investors, it's also becoming accessible. On Coinbase or Binance, you can already trade many of these AI tokens directly. You don't have to build models or run GPUs yourself. You can simply allocate part of your portfolio to these projects if you believe in the sector. And even developers who aren't AI experts can plug into services like Fetch.ai, where you can deploy an AI agent that handles tasks like supply chain optimization or simple financial automation. It's more about imagination than infrastructure at this point. So, to sum it up, yes, everyday users can already get involved, either by investing, contributing computing power, or experimenting with agents. It's still early, but the barrier to entry is much lower than most people assume.
Well, Adrian, it's exciting to hear that everyday users can already start participating, but I know our listeners are curious about specifics. Can we start looking at actual AI crypto projects? Maybe the most talked about one, BitTensor, or TAO. What exactly does it do?
Absolutely. BitTensor is essentially a decentralized marketplace for AI models. Think of it like a stock exchange, but instead of stocks, you have machine learning models. Developers contribute their models, and other participants, whether companies or individuals, can pay to use them. TAO tokens are used as the currency to reward contributors based on how useful their model is to the network.
So it's kind of like open AI, but decentralized. Can people access AI services without going through a single big company?
Exactly. That's the promise. You don't have to rely on a single provider like OpenAI or Google. The network distributes the computation and rewards people who actually create valuable models. It's AI as a service, but without central control.
Sounds really innovative. But what about the risks? I imagine competing with centralized giants isn't exactly easy.
Right. Centralized models still have huge advantages: massive data, optimized infrastructure, and brand trust. BitTensor has to prove that decentralization can match or exceed that value. Plus, there's always the risk that not enough developers contribute useful models, which could slow adoption.
Got it. So it's promising, but not a guaranteed win. That gives a much clearer picture.
Exactly. And if we look at price expectations, 2025 is a key year for Tau because of the halving in December. The daily token issuance will drop from 7,200 to 3,600 Tau, creating deflationary pressure. If demand holds or grows, the price could stabilize around $450 to $600 by the end of 2025, with spikes possible if the ecosystem sees positive news. For 2026, as the halving effects fully materialize and the network expands, prices could realistically reach $800 to $900. And looking further ahead, by 2030, some analysts see Tau climbing anywhere from about $1,300 up to $2,300 or more, assuming the AI and blockchain trend continues strongly.
That's super helpful. I think our listeners can see the potential clearly now. Later in the podcast, Adrian, we'll break down a $10,000 AI crypto portfolio, including Tau, so people get a concrete idea of how to get started.
Absolutely, Isabella. I'd be happy to help break it down and show a practical approach. That way, listeners can see how to balance risk and opportunity across different AI projects.
Great. Now, let's move on to the next coin that's gaining attention, Artificial Superintelligence Alliance, or FET. Can you give our listeners an overview of what this project actually is?
Sure. FET represents a combination of three leading decentralized AI projects: Fetch.ai, SingularityNet, AGIX, and Ocean Protocol, OCEN. They merged to create an open, decentralized infrastructure for building artificial general intelligence, AGI, and eventually artificial superintelligence, ASI. The token FET now represents the whole alliance, replacing the older AGIX and Ocean tokens.
So it's basically a union of top AI projects aiming to make a more powerful decentralized AI ecosystem.
Exactly. The key idea is autonomous AI agents integrated into DeFi and other networks, allowing tasks like data management, smart contract execution, and decision-making to happen without central control. They also have strong partnerships with industry players, which can help with adoption.
Sounds promising. But what about the risks? I imagine merging three projects isn't exactly easy.
Right, it's a high-risk, high-reward scenario. Integrating different technologies is technically challenging, and adoption might take longer than expected. If developers and users don't fully embrace the ecosystem, growth can be slower. That's why investors need to be cautious, especially in 2025, the first full year after the merger.
And in terms of price expectations, what are we looking at for FET?
For 2025, considering mixed signals and initial adoption, the realistic range is roughly 80 cents to 150, with spikes up to around $2 possible if the ecosystem sees particularly positive developments. For 2026, as the alliance matures and adoption grows, the price could reach about $150 to $2. And looking further ahead into 2030, analysts see potential for FET to reach around $3 or more, though that assumes the roadmap is executed perfectly and adoption scales widely. So it's exciting, but definitely a project for those comfortable with higher risk exposure.
Perfect. That gives a very clear picture. So listeners, you can see why FET is considered cutting edge. Lots of potential upside, but you need to be mindful of the risks.
Exactly. It's at the forefront of decentralized AI innovation, and for those ready to research and monitor the project, it could be rewarding.
All right, with TAO and FET covered, next we'll dive into Render. I keep seeing this one pop up in AI and metaverse discussions. Can you explain to our listeners what makes Render unique?
Sure. Render is essentially a decentralized GPU rendering network. It connects users who need computing power for tasks like 3D rendering, visual effects, gaming, and AI model training with people who have spare GPU capacity. Originally, it ran on Ethereum, but it moved to Solana in 2023 to increase speed and reduce costs. The native token Render is used to pay for these services.
So it's kind of like a marketplace for computing power, but decentralized.
Yeah,
That sounds
exactly.
pretty futuristic.
Exactly. It creates a more efficient and accessible market for resource-intensive tasks. Think about AI models or large-scale graphics rendering. Instead of paying huge fees to centralized providers, you can tap into distributed GPUs across the network. It's a perfect match for the growing demand in AI, virtual reality, and the metaverse.
And what about the price? I know people always want to hear some realistic projections.
Sure, for 2025, analysts expect moderate growth, mainly driven by increased adoption of decentralized computing for AI and graphics. Realistically, the price could settle somewhere between $6.50 and $12, with spikes possible if the broader crypto market turns bullish. For 2026, as Render scales further and more users join the network, the price could reach $12 to $20.
Wow, so the potential is really there. And in the long term, if we talk about 2030,
Long-term projections are optimistic but highly variable. If Render secures a leading position in decentralized computing and AI, analysts see potential for the token to reach $50 to $85 or even higher by 2030. Of course, there's significant volatility, and some forecasts are more conservative. The key takeaway is that adoption of AI and decentralized computing is the main driver, and Render is well positioned in this space.
that really puts things into perspective. It's exciting to see how decentralized infrastructure for AI and graphics is evolving.
Absolutely. For those willing to do their research, Render represents a practical application of AI and blockchain together with long-term upside if the ecosystem grows as expected.
All right, Adrian, we've covered Tau, FET, and Render. That already gives our listeners a solid picture of the AI crypto space. Let's keep going. Next up, I want to talk about Near Protocol, or NEAR. Can you explain what makes Near stand out and why it's attracting so much attention from developers and investors?
Sure. Near Protocol is a decentralized platform for building and running dApps with a strong focus on scalability and developer friendliness. It uses a unique sharding mechanism called Nightshade, which allows the network to process thousands of transactions per second with low fees.
So it's designed to be fast and cost efficient for users, but also easy for developers to work with.
Exactly. Plus, Near offers Ethereum compatibility through the Rainbow Bridge and the Aurora runtime, so it makes it easier for developers from the Ethereum ecosystem to migrate or integrate their projects. The combination of high throughput, low fees, and cross-chain compatibility is very attractive right now.
Got it. And how about price projections for 2025 and 2026? I know our listeners want some tangible numbers.
For 2025, analysts are moderately bullish. The price of Near could stabilize around $4 to $7, with potential spikes up to $9 if the overall crypto market turns strongly bullish. In 2026, as adoption continues and the network scales, the price could reach $12 to $15. Looking further ahead toward 2030, if Near captures a leading position in the blockchain ecosystem, analysts see potential for the token to reach $50 to $85 or even higher.
Wow, that's quite the trajectory. So Near is really positioned as a foundation for dApps and cross-chain solutions, not just another token to trade.
Exactly. It's less about short-term hype and more about long-term infrastructure growth. Developers building serious applications need platforms like Near to scale efficiently.
That's really insightful, Adrian. Near clearly focuses on building strong, scalable infrastructure for developers. Speaking of infrastructure,
let's talk about Internet Computer, or ICP. It's often highlighted when people discuss Web 3.0 and decentralized cloud computing. Can you explain what sets ICP apart and why investors are paying attention to it?
Sure. ICP is essentially trying to bring cloud computing to the blockchain. Think of it as a decentralized alternative to services like AWS, but with smart contract capabilities and AI integration. Developers can host applications entirely on-chain, which opens up new possibilities for Web 3.0 and AI-driven services.
So it's not just another token, it's really about infrastructure and the future of cloud computing, right?
Exactly. The potential is huge, but there are challenges too. Trust, scalability, and adoption are critical. If ICP can handle enterprise-level workloads reliably, it could really change the game. But if there are performance issues or security concerns, growth could be slower.
That makes sense. And looking at 2025 and 2026, what are the price expectations? Our listeners are curious to hear some concrete numbers to get a sense of the outlook.
For 2025, analysts are moderately optimistic. The price of ICP could trade in a wide range, with potential spikes to around $15 to $22 by the end of the year if the market turns bullish and the network hits key milestones. Looking ahead to 2026 and 2027, assuming development and adoption continue, the price could reach $30 to $50. And long-term, toward 2030, optimistic scenarios suggest ICP might reach 80 to 120, with a best-case high adoption scenario even hitting 200 plus. Of course, this is highly speculative and depends a lot on adoption and network performance.
Wow, that's a wide range. It really shows the volatility, but also the potential upside for long-term investors. So ICP is about decentralized infrastructure, AI integration, and scaling Web3 applications.
Exactly. For anyone interested in AI-powered blockchain projects, ICP is definitely a coin to watch closely, even if it comes with higher risk.
All right, Adrian, now that we've covered all 5 coins, let's talk about a new interesting project, DeepSnitch AI. It's an experimental AI tool aimed at helping traders monitor blockchain activity in real time. Can you give our listeners a sense of what DeepSnitch AI actually does and why it's generating buzz?
Sure. DeepSnitch AI is designed to level the playing field for retail traders by using multiple AI agents to track blockchain activity. It monitors movements of large wallets, suspicious smart contract activity, social sentiment, coordinated campaigns, and potential scams. Essentially, it gives traders real-time insights that used to be accessible mainly to whales or institutional players.
That sounds powerful, but it also seems like a pretty high-risk tool. For someone hearing about it for the first time, how should they think about the opportunity versus the risk?
Absolutely. It's a high-risk, high-reward project. It's still in pre-sale, and early investors are showing strong interest. In the short term, if the pre-sale goes well and it gets listed on major exchanges, the token could see its first meaningful growth, maybe around 5 to 6 cents. But adoption is key. If traders start using it widely, the outlook for 2026 looks even more interesting, potentially reaching 20 to 35 cents.
Wow, so for 2026, we're already looking at the possibility of significant growth. And long term, could it realistically compete with other AI trading tools or even become a standard in the space?
Potentially, yes. Between 2027 and 2029, the project could either establish itself as a niche leader or stay relatively under the radar. If it succeeds, prices might reach 40 cents to $1.20. By 2030, in a best-case scenario, with wide adoption and strong growth in the AI crypto sector, the token could even go past $2. Of course, that's highly speculative, and success depends on execution, adoption, and the overall market.
Got it. So it's exciting, but definitely for those who can tolerate volatility and do their homework. DYOR is key here. Look into the white paper, team, and pre-sale details before putting any money in.
Exactly. Treat it like a high-risk experimental asset. Only invest what you're ready to potentially lose, but keep an eye on its utility and adoption trends.
Perfect. That gives our listeners a clear picture of both the potential and the risks. You know, Adrian, I think our listeners are really curious now that we've gone through Tau, FET, Render, Near, ICP, and Deep Snitch AI. It's probably time to dive into the big question. How would you actually combine these coins into a $10,000 AI crypto portfolio?
Sure. Let's break it down carefully, keeping both growth potential and risk in mind.
Awesome. And just to be clear for everyone listening, we'll go step by step. So even if you're new to AI tokens or crypto, you'll get a sense of how a diversified portfolio might look.
Great. So starting with BitTensor, or TAO, I'd make this the core of the portfolio. It's the most established player in decentralized AI with a strong community and unique technology. I'd put about 25% here. That's $2,500. It's relatively stable compared to the rest and has solid long-term potential.
Okay, so that's 25% for Tau, which means we've got 75% left for the rest. Got it. Tau as the foundation makes perfect sense.
Next, the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance, or FET. This alliance is powerful, combining Fetch.ai, SingularityNet, and Ocean Protocol. For exposure to the broader AI infrastructure, I'd put 20% or $2,000 into FET.
All right, so we've allocated 25% to Tau and now 20% to FET. That's 45% total so far. This one feels like the growth segment of the portfolio, right?
Yeah, sure. Then there's Render, leading in decentralized GPU rendering. It's well positioned for AI graphics, Web3, and the metaverse. I'd assign 20% or $2,000 to Render.
Okay, let's see. 25% to Tau, 20% to FET, and now 20% to Render. That's about 65% of our portfolio so far. Yeah, we're doing pretty well. Let's continue.
Near Protocol comes next, a highly scalable, developer-friendly infrastructure that could see mass adoption. I'd allocate another 20% or $2,000.
All right, so 25% to Tau, 20% to FET, 20% to Render, and now 20% to Near. That brings us to 85% of our portfolio. Near is clearly our infrastructure bet. Got it.
Then for Internet Computer, or ICP, which is more of a speculative and high-tech play, I'd go with 10% or $1,000. It could see significant growth if adoption picks up, but it comes with a higher risk.
Got it. So ICP is our smaller, higher risk, high-tech bet. That brings our total to 95%, leaving a little room for something extra.
Exactly. And that something extra is Deep Snitch AI, or DSNT, the high-risk, high-reward experimental pre-sale. I'd cap it at 5% or $500. It could make a big impact if it succeeds, but even if it fails, the rest of the portfolio stays balanced.
Perfect. I love how this combines established projects with a small experimental slice. It really shows the range of opportunities and risks in AI crypto.
Exactly. This portfolio balances aggressive growth with risk management focused on the megatrends of AI and decentralized infrastructure.
And just to give our listeners a perspective, what could this portfolio realistically look like over the next few years?
Well, by 2026 to 2027, adoption should really kick in. Prices could reach all-time highs or even surpass them. The portfolio could grow 6 to 10 times, meaning $60,000 to $100,000. Deep Snitch AI, if it succeeds, might add 20 to 50 times on its small allocation, significantly boosting overall returns. By 2030, as AI and Web3 mature, the portfolio could realistically grow 10 to 20 times, turning $10,000 into $100,000 to $200,000. And an optimistic scenario with ideal adoption, it could be even higher.
Wow, Adrian, that really puts everything into perspective. It's exciting to see the potential, but also a good reminder that hype and reality don't always match. That's why DLIOR do your own research, is absolutely essential before putting your money into any of these projects.
Yes, Isabella, always look into the fundamentals, understand the technology, and consider your own risk tolerance. That's the key to making informed decisions.
Thank you so much for this deep dive, Adrian, and for walking us through a concrete portfolio. I know our listeners are going to find this incredibly valuable.
My pleasure, Isabella. It was great to explore this topic, and I hope I gave everyone a clearer understanding of AI and cryptocurrencies.
For those following along, in our next episode, Adrian and I will be back to discuss AI and trading bots. Can you really trust them? We'll explore the promises, the pitfalls, and practical insights on using trading bots in crypto.
That's right. I'll break down how these bots work, what to watch out for, and how to make informed decisions if you choose to use them.
Thanks again for joining us, Adrian, and thanks to all our listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts or suggestions for topics in the comments. Your feedback helps us make future episodes even better. Stay curious, continue exploring the possibilities of AI and cryptocurrencies, and see you next time.